lighting as low as you can so that the spots look sort of okay. But it's just one of the limitations of human physiology and artifacts and things like that. So it's pretty good. Something I'm particularly attuned to because I'm going blind, so that's pretty cool. One of the great opportunities we have with this exhibit, and was part of my original concept, was I could let people really experience the tool cabinet. When you see it in a photograph, no matter how good the photograph is, you don't appreciate the three-dimensional sculpturality of it. And you don't get the sense that I got the first time that I saw it in person. As you walk around it or the lights move, the thing shimmers. It just shimmers from the mother of pearl and the tools and things like that. So you get to experience that. And we also get to show you the insides. I'll start with one of the things that we can't really exhibit just because of logistics is the back side of this, which is a little bit of an issue. These tools are fussy, some of them. But I want you to notice that exquisite little apprentice vise. It's photographed really wonderfully in the book, but the back jaw, you see this pin, the back jaw actually pivots so you can put irregularly shaped pieces in there. And he's got it mounted, of course, to a small slab of Santo Domingo mahogany, and it fits in its own sort of holster in the back. But pretty cool. I think that Studley sort of hyphenated anal retentive. This is, and again, if any of these gauge beams is out of place 1/16 of an inch, the next layer won't close. So you've got to always make sure that those layers are in place. One of the most astounding things to me that I found in this, probably the single most surprising thing, is that he did not build a permanent support for this swinging till or swinging thing. It would have to be open, it would have to sit down on these doors, which is absolutely not
kosher these days?
Not up to stuff. Well, the doors couldn't take the weight. I mean, it's a very heavy load of tools coming up. And then when you compare it to this panel, yeah, thanks, Mike. You keep remembering that because I keep forgetting it. When you open this one and see the support and the catch that goes with it, it's absolutely jewelry-like the way it unfolds and sits there. And then you have these wonderful spring-loaded locking knobs that latch everything in here, and then you open this and you see what I call Narayan's box of tool porn right there. We have, you can just barely see over here. If you get a flashlight, you can look down into 3 layers, three removable frames of French fitted tools down in this little drawer. And then over here, which I've been leaving open, is this drawer 3/4 inches tall out of 3/16 inch stock in the sides with 1 full and 2 half-blind dovetails. I mean, really. As I said, the challenge of Studley is to either be inspired to do better work or inspired to do different work. That's one of the things. I'll point out these are the dogs from the bench. Of course he used solid ebony dogs, doesn't everybody? They're very precisely fit. Thank you, Mike. We can put it in. But again, then we had the trouble of designing a vitrine that can both lock at night and can be opened every hour, sort of on the half hour. So that you guys get that greater experience. And my wife is continuing to talk to me to get out of the way because you guys didn't come here to see me, you came here to slobber all over this thing. Yeah.
Can we just ask you folks that in the front if you would be kind enough to take turns and let the folks in the back get close as well?
Yes, sorry.
It's a crush. Last night we had a reception with all the vendors from Handworks, and there were 3 times as many people, maybe 4 times as many here as there were. And I didn't see it, but I've heard that Roy Underhill's nose print is right. Planted themselves.
It's probably much shorter than it was.
It's,
And there's a tool missing, right?
no, there's no tools missing that we know of.
There's no accident.
There was, the cabinet itself was built out of Santo Domingo mahogany with ebony trim and ivory and mother of pearl. Empty, it weighs about 70 pounds. There's a book somewhere somebody wrote that has these numbers in it. It weighs about 70 pounds empty, and I think just a little under 170 pounds full. The number of tools that I attribute to this is about 275, and the real number could be as low as 230 or to 310, just depends on how you count tools. One of the things that was so heartwarming to me is to open some of the drawers and find bits and pieces of stuff he couldn't throw away, tools that were broken or tools that were being made. And it made me feel, well, maybe Studley was human after all. Because when you see this, you got to sort of wonder sometimes what's going on. He was like I said, he hyphenated anal intended. Let me just get a little dust off of here.
I've heard it's not completely finished, but what is it that you notice, or what's
Well,
the main thing?
the supports for here, and there's a couple of other things where there was some prep work for other fittings that were never attached. Now the box as a whole was made for this set of tools, and that's all. It did not evolve. It was designed for this set of tools. So when he actually picked up his popular woodworking cut list to make your tool cabinet, he built it exactly as he had planned it, because there's no other explanation for the way this thing fits. And it does sort of raise the question, well, how much time did he have to put into planning this out for these sets of tools that fold together, and if tools are out of place, the thing won't close. It's quite a challenge to think about that. The actual building is fairly straightforward. It's exquisite workmanship, but it's nothing exotic technically. It's just superb technically. So, that's sort of it. There's about 8 or 9, maybe 10 tools that are replacement tools from the original set that had been lost along the way. There's about 7 or 8 tools that we're not 100% sure what they were or what they did. We can invent a story, but who knows whether it's true.
How many did he make himself?
About 3 dozen. By that I say either made or heavily modified.
Okay.
For example, the chisel set, those are store-bought Tang chisels, but he made all of the handles himself. And each handle is a smidge longer and a smidge fatter than the next one in line. So each handle is unique. And almost all of the handle tools, he made the handles, in some cases clearly removing the original handle and making a new one for it, just because.
Don says he made a couple repairs to it yet?
I've made a couple things. There were a couple of pieces of mother of pearl that popped out, and then one of the lid supports just on the right side of the center was split, and I made a repair of that. That's pretty much it. It's not a tool cabinet that I could work out of. I'm not that fastidious. And I'm not sure he did. I have no way to know. I mean, when it comes to how he worked and what he worked on and who he was as a person, we don't really know as much as we would like. The one thing that I can say that we know without any shadow of a doubt is he was a really good real estate speculator. He and his wife had, over a 25-year period, 400 real estate transactions. And by the time she died, she predeceased him. She was wealthy, and he was wealthy with her. When he died, his liquid assets probated were about $50,000. This is in 1925. So,
If you equivalize that one.
again, depending on which yardstick marker you use, it's somewhere between $750,000 and $5 million. So he was a really good cabinet maker, because I know, and you guys are really good cabinet makers too, so I'm assuming you're sort of closing in on that territory.
So you know the combination?
We do not know the combination, so we leave the match plate off the backside, but there's nothing that really says, leave my stuff alone, quite like a little lock like that. That's not from the hobby store. That's,
What year is this dated from?
I'm guessing it's dated around 1900, give or take. There's no, again, Studley was not a millennial, he wasn't a Gen Xer, he wasn't even a baby boomer. He did not record every feeling and impulse and exchange it amongst his circle of friends. We know nothing from his hands or lips about himself, except this. We do know that according to tradition, and there's no reason to dispute this, he built it after he came to pool piano, which he came in 1897, 1898, somewhere in there.
Was he a Civil War veteran?
He was a veteran of the Second War of Secession, yes. He was a prisoner of war, actually. He was captured during the invasion of Galveston on New Year's Day of 1863. And it's interesting because his obituary said he served the rest of the war in a prisoner of war camp, which is curious because the official records of the U.S. Army indicated he was repatriated in a prisoner swap about 3 weeks later. So somebody was embellishing the story. I don't know who. But he was a very faithful and enthusiastic patron of the Grand Army of the Republic, which was the veterans group from the northern side of the Second War of Secession.
War between the states.
War between the states is also accurate.
Yes.
Civil War is not accurate. It wasn't the least bit civil.
No war yet.
No war really is. But it was a domestic war.
Yes.
Domestic. But, and in fact, the Grand Army of the Republic was the only institution specifically bequeathed in his will.